the first thing I want to talk about is he talks about debate and the state of debate right now. So if we can go to that, it'll be 11:40 to 12:38. And then, Rollo, I'll come to you. I want to get your reaction to what he says.
I think that all of the people who disagree with me are very, very welcome to disagree with me because they have had a unique life path and a different point of view. And I respect that, absolutely. I would never shout for any of the people who disagree with anything I say to be silenced or canceled because I don't think that helps the world. I think that discourse is always going to be the way that we lead ourselves to the truth. And if anybody has anything contrary to say about any of my points of view, I welcome it. I like to hear it. And as long as it's in a respectful and adult manner, I often platform it on my platforms as much as possible so I can sit and discuss and I can learn things. Because if I have a point of view and someone challenges it in a very adult, correct, logical way, very often I have changed my point of view.
This was the moment, we can stop it there. This was the moment for me where I said, this is a different guy than what I've seen in these clips. Yeah. I haven't seen this guy before because just that moment of saying, I can learn something. That's something I say. That's something I think you and I had that conversation before you sat down live with me. You were like, hey, maybe I'll walk out of this room. I'll think about this differently or think that is the nature of someone who welcomes actual conversation. So when you hear that, I hear that and I say that guy just gained fans by speaking out like that. I think people inclined to disagree with him on some content are going to rally behind him because of things he said like that. What was your take on that moment?
Right. I mentioned this yesterday in my show. First off, this is the logical extension of getting banned. Okay. He's not the first one to get banned off of social media or get like canceled like simultaneously. You got to remember what happened to him. He lost his YouTube. He lost his Twitter. He lost his TikTok. He wasn't even on TikTok, and they banned him off of TikTok. They killed his Instagram. They basically disappeared him digitally, simultaneously, all within the same week, much like they did Alex Jones, much like they did Roosh V, much like they did Milo Yiannopoulos from back in the past. So this is a pattern. This is something that you can expect if you're putting this kind of material out and you're outrageous enough that people are going to start to take notice. Andrew also had the effect of the plan, his organization, let's just say, is he had at least 100,000. I think I don't know what the exact numbers are, but he had at least 100,000 guys in Hustlers University who were rebroadcasting his own material, and they are getting banned too. So that's how serious a threat that big tech takes him right now. And so now we're going to transition into the free speech aspect of all of this. Should he be able to say what he wants to say? Well, what he's saying is clearly dangerous enough for every one of those platforms to simultaneously disconnect him. Same thing for his payment processors. I'm not going to say who they are, but his two payment processors also dropped him on the same week. So this is a coordinated effort. Mm-hmm. So it's not just like, hey guys, well, we're going to ban him. How about you? It's a coordinated effort. So that's something that I think we need to remember for the future for when guys who are like Tate, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be in the manosphere. This is the possibility, and plan ahead. Understand that this is play chess, not checkers, right? So when I see this, and he's 100% right, I agree. Like, theoretically, philosophically, I understand that. I've said this before. I think I said this to you on your show. I have an obligation to objective truth. And the only way you get to that is through the crucible of open debate. You cannot test the strength of an idea unless you can actually talk about that idea. Well, the problem is we don't have any problem when we're talking about like Republicans versus Democrats, or the left versus the right, or conservative, versus liberal, or progressivism, or that kind. We don't have any problem talking about that. We can still have those conversations and not get canceled, or not get as canceled. The moment you bring up intersexual dynamics, the moment you say there's a difference between men and women, physical, neurological, psychological, when you point out those differences, and when you start talking about the unflattering truths about men's nature and women's nature, that gets you simultaneously banned after 6 to 8 months. If you get to a point where they take notice of you, that's when you lose your platform. That's when you lose your voice. And it's, as Roosh V used to say, it's when they take away your bread. It's when they kill your revenue. It's when they make you unable to do anything that you've been doing up to this point. Now, he's been on Rumble, and he's been on some, he's trying to make a move over to Getter and some other like alternative platforms, which, by the way, if you saw his most recent video on Rumble, he generated, I want to say it was like 140 or 145 100,000 live views on Rumble. Right. It was the top live view show on Rumble ever. And in fact, the CEO, I think, of Rumble was like commenting about this on an article not too long ago. But that's how popular his message is. That's what's getting out right now. And that's what like this generation of Lost Boys want to hear. And they want to get behind him. They want to be like Tate's army kind of thing. And the problem with this is that's what the big tech who canceled him were afraid of. It's not necessarily him as a person. It's the idea. It's the broadcasting or the dissemination of those ideas. And that's what really I think that they're threatened by. So when you look at like political discourse, when you look at like, we can talk about the recession, we can talk about Biden, we can talk about anything you want to, except for intersexual dynamics, except for anything that puts men and women in an unflattering light, because we're shining a light on basic biological evolutionary differences between men and women. That's too dangerous for them to have on their platforms.
And with that, I think goes the topic of gender identity, because a lot of the people in the political sphere that are being banned, being suspended, being threatened right now are talking about this gender identity theory. And if in order to have that conversation, you have to be able to say, this is a biological man, this is a biological woman. And in order to further assess that conversation, you have to be willing to acknowledge that men and women are in fact different. There are differences. So everyone saying that is also, that's why I say women are not exempt from the banning. Women are out there right now. Conservative women are out there having these conversations, and they're facing the same nonsense on Twitter. You'll constantly see somebody, I was suspended again for saying just a basic biological fact. So what I always say is that, the powers that be, and by that, it usually means, network television, cable news, oftentimes in large part funded by big pharma, by the way, which benefits from all of these conversations going in one way. And, the powers that be in Silicon Valley oftentimes unite, and they decide, okay, we will allow some degree of dissent, but on these safe topics that we're okay with, and we'll allow the dissent to go this far. Once it crosses that line, we will suspend. Once you touch a topic that they're not okay with, it's like an off-limits topic. They're not okay with that. Suddenly you're suspended. So, this is a moment, I think. You talked about, the Tate Army. I think there is a lot of that, a lot of rallying behind him. But I also think there's going to be a rallying behind him from people who are like, what, this isn't even about Tate. This is much bigger than Tate, because who's it going to be next? Maybe it's going to be somebody they like, a conservative talk radio host. Maybe it's going to be whoever. Maybe it's going to be somebody who speaks out against Planned Parenthood. You know the topics. We all know them that you can't touch without worrying that you're going to face a ban or a suspension of some kind. I think that's why Rumble is now growing. If you like the short clip, you can catch another one here, or you can catch the full episode right here.